Hi there Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bossk Bounty video, and welcome to episode 139 of Ask Bossk Bounty. This is the weekly Q&A series that drops every Sunday, where I take your questions from the comment section below and do my very best to answer them for you. So if you do have a question that you want answered in next week's episode, please leave it in the comment section below of this video. Unfortunately, if you leave your questions on any of my other videos, then unfortunately they just do not get picked up. So make sure to leave it in the comments of this video. I do just want to apologise also for not putting out a Ask Bossk Bounty video last Sunday. The reason for that was that I actually went on holiday. I went on holiday with my family for a week to Portugal. It was beautiful. It was great to have a rest, but of course I did make sure that I scheduled lots of videos, lots of content for you guys while I was away. Unfortunately, the Ask Bossk Bounty videos dropping on a Sunday. I went on holiday on the Friday. It was just too much to be able to put that video together for you. And also, I didn't do a reaction video to the SDCC stuff as well. The actual Hasbro panel anyway. But we're going to be talking about some of the things that were revealed in this video today, because some of the questions do relate to those reveals. So if you do happen to enjoy this episode, don't forget to drop a like down below, because it really helps the video and the channel. And with all that being said, let's get on to the first question. Admiral Akbar Mash says, here's a good question for you, Mr. Bossk. They revealed part 2 of a 6-pack to complete the first 12 in the retro collection at SDCC with VAC Metal on 3PO and R2. Yet when asked about it for TVC, they couldn't say. Why can't they just say, yes, we will VAC Metal a 3PO in the future? Hopefully a new, taller sculpt. Okay, so I think there's probably two reasons behind that. The first one is that Hasbro never seemed to give too much away in terms of like future projects, future figures, that kind of thing. The second reason is that there's always been issues around making figures with VAC Metal. One of the reasons was because of environmental issues, which I do believe they mentioned that they've sort of overcome those issues now in the production of those figures. So there's no sort of harm to the environment or anything like that. I didn't really understand that anyway, but they said that was a thing. But they said they've overcome it, which is great. But the other thing about VAC Metalized figures is the QC concerns, I would imagine. If we look at this 3PO here, this is the one that came with the Ewok chair once again. The only extra articulation that this guy has versus a vintage figure or a retro collection figure is on the torso there and the knees. But if you look at the knees are actually made of a different plastic and they haven't been painted with the VAC Metal. Now that's because if you are constantly moving it like this, eventually that sort of VAC metalized paint or whatever is going to chip away, and I think that is their main concern about doing sort of articulated figures in VAC Metal. I think with the retro collection it's much easier because at the end of the day the head moves, the arms move and the hips move, and that's it. So I think that's probably their concern. We'll have to wait and see what happens in the future, but at least we know that the environmental concerns are over and that's no longer an issue for them. And at the end of the day, when they do a new 3PO, if they do a new 3PO, then hopefully they'll be able to design the articulation like they've done with the knees there, that, you know, the QC concerns are no longer a concern. Larry Hines says, great video as always. Question for next week. Arguably the 5 most needed TVC figures at this point are the A New Hope Han Solo, Luke Farm Boy, Leia White Gown, Old Ben Kenobi, and the Return of the Jedi Simu. Surprisingly, classic Han, Luke, Leia and Old Ben have not been done for the vintage collection yet, and at this point need completely all new updated definitive sculpts, and Sim has never been done since 1985, plus the fact that they're part of the 96 makes them absolute necessities. Is there anything on the horizon for these much needed figures? Well, I can't say or not if there is anything on the horizon for these much needed figures, but what I can say is that one of the pipeline figures for next year was a new Han Solo from Endor. Not too sure whether that's going to be with the trench coat or not, but essentially once they've done that figure, the hope is that enables them to then go back and use that new mold for this Han Solo, the A New Hope Han Solo, which would be great. But I'm absolutely with you that, you know, those figures that you've mentioned we definitely do need. I'm not 100% sure about Simu. Obviously we need him for the 96, but he is an incredibly boring figure, and you've got to be worried for the amount of sales that they would get with that figure. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, the hardcore fans would eat that up. You know, we'd buy those no problem, but you know, the casual fan, would they really buy an Imperial Dignitary? That's going to be a tough one when they come to do that one for sure. Brad Monastier says, hi BB, love the channel. Question for next week. If Hasbro states that doing brand new molds prevents it from making more all new figures, how do you justify all the resources that they are going towards retro collection figures, particularly those from The Mandalorian and Obi-Wan Kenobi? Aren't those all new molds? Thanks, appreciate all that you do. Brad, you're absolutely right, my friend, and this is why I personally think that the retro collection should really stick to the original Kenner figures. At the end of the day, they can just 3D scan those guys. There's no design process involved, anything like that. You know, with the Grand Inquisitor, for example, you know, they've got to design it, they've got to create the tooling, all that kind of stuff, the card back. With a vintage Kenner figure, a lot of that is already done for them. So what fans of the vintage collection do need to understand is that all of these figures all come from the same budget, right? So if they're going to be making a whole wave of Obi-Wan Kenobi retro figures, or ones for Andor maybe, I don't know. I don't think they're going to be doing that, but they certainly did it for The Mandalorian, 2 waves in fact. Then that money, that budget comes out of the pot, which could potentially be put towards new figures in the vintage collection. Now, I'm not saying that these ones here cost as much as a vintage collection figure. Of course they don't. There's nowhere near as many paint apps or articulation or anything like that to worry about. But still, they still cost money and they still take budget from the pot, which could be used to make, I don't know, 2 or 3 newly tooled figures extra in a year. And this is exactly the sort of thing that I was saying when these first were announced, that I was really annoyed essentially because, you know, we want the Grand Inquisitor, we want the other Inquisitor, and we want Ned B in the vintage collection before the retro collection. So I don't know what to say. AJ says, question for next week. First off, love the content you have been providing. Thank you very much, mate. No problem at all. Are you also collecting the retro Hasbro Pulse exclusive G.I. Joe 3.75 O-ring releases? Keep up the great work. I am buying those. Yep, I do like the 3.75 inch retro G.I. Joes. I bought the ones before they changed them to the O-rings. I didn't know that they were Hasbro Pulse exclusives though. Maybe that's just something in the States, but yep, I'm buying them, I'm collecting them. Mando Brunt says, hi BB, question for next week. Which figure from the vintage collection do you think is best value for money? Having watched a previous review of yours, I have recently bought 2 times red Imperial Guards and for £14 a figure. I feel you get your money's worth. 2 figures in one, multiple accessories, and even a small blaster that potentially you can use for the Gaming Great Scout Trooper. Your thoughts? Absolutely, the Imperial Guard is definitely value for money, but I'm going to pick a couple that have been recently released that I think are outstanding value for money. And the first one is the new Darth Vader from Obi-Wan Kenobi. This Darth Vader is the definitive Darth Vader. He is absolutely incredible. But not only did you just get an incredible figure, but you got the changeable hands and an unlit lightsaber as well. And I thought that was just extra value for money. The figure alone, I think, would have been worth the money. But to include the extra accessories, so you're able to, you know, pose him in all different situations, I think that was really, really good. Another one that I think is great value for money is the Fennec Shan, which I've got here. You get the changeable helmet, the hairpiece comes out, you get 2 blasters, and you get the bottle of Spotchka as well. Once again, I think that one was really, really good value for money. And in fact, if you look at the whole Obi-Wan wave, you've got the Obi-Wan figure and the Reva figure, and both of those come with lots of accessories as well. So, you know, this is what the vintage collection should do. Give us as many accessories as possible and make the figures worth the money. Joan Anderson says, hey BB, love your channel and what you do for the community. Question for next week. Do you think there is a war coming regarding the new cases from Star Action Figures? Looking in some vintage collection collectors Facebook group, it is starting to cause a stir and people seem to be very keen on defending DC deflector cases. Well, to be honest, I haven't seen any of those things happening because I just haven't had time to go into the groups recently and look what's being said. But I did do a video about it yesterday. It was one of the videos that I had scheduled for while I was away. It went live yesterday and it's all about the Star Action Figure cases. I compare the Star Action Figure cases against cases that are already on the market. But in terms of a war, you know, at the end of the day, I think it's quite normal in business for one company to sell something and then another company to do something similar or maybe even better. And then hopefully that makes the original company either up their game, reduce their prices, be more competitive. At the end of the day, that's just business, I think. But it's entirely up to the consumer who they go with. They might want to go with who they have always been with, or they might want to try something new. But I do advise that you watch that video for the comparisons. Rob S722 says, great content as always, BB. I have a question for next week. Would you rather see Hasbro finish the 96 or keep making new, never done before figures? As we know, We only get a certain amount of figs per year. Keep up the great work and say hi to little Bossk for me. I certainly will, Rob, no problem. And in terms of choosing between, finishing the 96 or making new figures, I really don't like having to make that choice. And to be honest, at San Diego Comic-Con, a lot of the Hasbro Q&As that they were doing, they were often sort of trotting out that line like, would you rather have X figure versus X figure, because this is the problem that we have. And I don't like them doing that. It's a bit frustrating when they do that, because at the end of the day, we want them all, right? We want all of the figures. All we want is for them to make more newly sculpted figures, invest more in the line. That is basically what we're saying. And at the end of the day, if you said to me, do you want a new Han Solo or the Grand Inquisitor? I think that's just an unfair thing to ask someone to choose from. At the end of the day, I really do believe that we should have both. When it comes to the 96, there's some things that they can do, like they have been doing with resculpts and retooling and sort of kit bashing and things like that to get some of the figures out, which we're very, very happy with. Some of them are going to need all new sculpts, and when that is the case, I don't think we should have to choose between a new Lando and a new Lobot versus the Grand Inquisitor or Ned B, for example. I don't think we should have that. At the end of the day, we should have these new figures in the vintage collection regardless, and then they should be trying to slot in the other ones as and when. I realise it's difficult, I realise there's a budget, but at the end of the day, the only way they're going to sort of meet those demands is to increase the budget. Scott Borum says, hi BB, awesome video as always, long time viewer, first time asking a question for next week. Given in the 3.75 series that the only two characters of the Book of Boba Fett have been released under the Book of Boba Fett title, Fennec Shand carded and Boba Fett in the deluxe packaging, correct me if I'm wrong, do you think they will release a carded version of Black Krrsantan, given he has been released in the Black series? So I personally think that Black Krrsantan is a given. At the end of the day, we're going to be getting Black Krrsantan at some point. He's been pipelined for the Black series. We will definitely be getting Black Krrsantan at some point in the vintage collection. However, on his own card, I don't think so. I've got a feeling that he will qualify as a deluxe figure. He's going to be quite big. We'll probably have a few accessories and things like that, his armour and things like that. So I've got a feeling it will be in a deluxe box rather than his own card, which will be a bit unfortunate because, this is kind of how we want the vintage collection. But I think Black Krrsantan, at the end of the day, it's a given. Just like the Dark Trooper was a given, we're getting that in a deluxe box. I think Black Krrsantan will follow suit in that respect. Just a Juan says, hey boss, good video today. Here is my question for next week. Do you think Hasbro will launch the 212 clones? We already know that it will be with the skinny mold, but in what format do you think? Revenge of the Sith, Clone Wars, or in an army builder? I hope they have the update on Tamura Morrison's face. Well, as we saw on SDCC, they did pipeline a brand new Phase 2 clone trooper, and I've got a feeling he'll be from the Andor series because they do pop up there, the clean white clone trooper, and this was music to my ears. I mean, if you've been following this channel, you will know that I really don't like the skinny clone. He has the oversized helmet, but look at those legs. That is an animated clone's legs. That for me is not a realistic human being in that armor whatsoever. So hopefully when they do the brand new Phase 2 clone trooper, it will be an awesome figure, just like they've done with the Stormtrooper and many other figures that they've updated. This will hopefully be the definitive clone trooper, and then after that I think they'll do loads of those 4-packs, 212th, 327th, 501st. I really can't wait for that sort of thing. That'll be fantastic. At the end of the day, they're not going to be doing an all new clone mold without then using him for repaints, and when it comes to repaints, that's how they do clone troopers. So people that complain about repaints, you can't really complain about a clone repaint because that's just the way it is. The clue's in the name. So I can't wait for that sort of thing. I love the Phase 2 clone trooper. Happy days. GeForce Racing 20 says, hey boss, great weekly as always. Speaking of HasLabs, I think if they keep the price between $200 to $300 like the G.I. Joe HasLabs and made a Republic gunship, Arc 170 fighter or Death Star playset, they would fare much better. What do you feel would be the top 3 can't fail HasLabs for TVC? This is a great question, GeForce Racing, and it really makes me think about what they could do for HasLabs. And to be honest, I do love your ideas as well. The gunship, the Arc 170, man, that would be awesome. But I think the Death Star would definitely be one that could not fail if they did it right. A Death Star playset could use many of the figures that we already have. We are getting Admiral Piet. He has been pipelined, which opens it up for loads more officers and things like that. We've got the definitive Stormtrooper. We've got the Imperial Gunner. We've got so many figures that could go in the Death Star. It's just working out how they would do that. What part of the Death Star? Would it be modular? That sort of thing. But in terms of would it fail, I don't think that could ever fail. And I'd just like to say as well that if the Star Wars team managed to sort of garner that passion that the G.I. Joe team put into their campaign, and also just from the way they presented it, then, you know, I don't think there's many things that could fail, to be honest. You could tell that they had that plan from the word go. All of the tiers were amazing, things like that. So if the next TVC HasLab can be anything like that, then brilliant. But my second choice for the could not fail would be the Cantina. I think, once again, we've got a lot of the characters already for that, but they would need to give us some of the others, like the Tonica sisters and things like that. But the Cantina is a classic scene in Star Wars. We've got Figuring Dan recently as well, so again, I don't think that one could fail. And then I always bring up the Sandcrawler because I think there's two versions that you could include in one. You could have the original one from A New Hope with all the Jawas and the droid sail, and then you could also mod the top of it for the Mandalorian as well with all the off-world Jawas. I think that would be awesome, and I don't think that one would fail either. So there's three for you, my friend. GA says, hi BB, great stuff as always. I love your talking speed is just right. Question for next week. With the Boba Jabba's throne room coming out in 2023, Hasbro will no doubt want to follow up to populate it with characters. If they released a 4-pack of figures with a palace room theme, which characters would you choose for the set? From Return of the Jedi or the Book of Boba Fett, or a mixture of the two? Thanks as ever, man. Okay then, so first up for that 4-pack, I would choose Squidhead. I think he would be a great one to include in that 4-pack. I'd also include the Rancor Keeper. He's part of the 96. We definitely need him. And I'd also include a Man as well. I think he'd be awesome. Again, a really great alien, part of the 96 as well. And then as one that serves a dual purpose for the 4th, I'd have 8D8. At the end of the day, he is in the Return of the Jedi and the Book of Boba Fett, and he is an original 96 figure, so that kills 3 birds with 1 stone. And there you go, that's a pretty awesome 4-pack. Another question about Return of the Jedi here. Michael G says, hi Boss Bounty, big fan of your weekly series. Question for next week. Will we ever see figures like EV99, 8D8, a Man, and the A-Wing pilot? Many of these figures haven't been made since the late 90s Power of the Force line, and definitely needed for the original 96. Keep up the good work. Totally agree with you, my friend, but I think the one that's most likely out of those is 8D8. I think that's probably the easiest one for them to do, and also, as I mentioned in one of the previous questions, he is in the Book of Boba Fett as well, so it kind of makes sense to do that figure. The other ones, I feel they're going to struggle to do those. Apart from the A-Wing pilot, maybe that one's more easy for them to do, but EV99, a Man, they're going to be difficult ones for them to do, for sure. Bill Matsos says, hey boss, question for next week. Along with Mon Mothma, what are your thoughts on General Madine? With the current photoreal technology, they should be able to get his ridiculous haircut perfect. That guy has got the most glorious haircut, has he not? It may even be a toupee, I don't know, but again, Madine is one of those figures, isn't it? They're going to struggle to sell that figure, aren't they, when they do him? Hardcore fans, once again, will eat that figure up, no problem, because we need him for the original 96. But after that, who's going to buy a General Madine? It's going to be a struggle, but of course, we hope they do it. Shocking Stuff says, what do you think it will take, or could we do, to make Hasbro take the vintage collection more seriously? The figure releases from the Obi-Wan series show the obvious lack of love for the TVC when compared to the Black series. What do you think? Well, overall, I think things have improved for the vintage collection, certainly since 2020, when it was on its knees, essentially. And I was definitely slightly worried about it again this year when these came out and the Black series got all of the Inquisitors and what have you from Obi-Wan, and we got, 3 figures. And I'm still majorly disappointed in that, and I do wish that Hasbro would take the vintage collection more seriously, invest more money in it. But at the same time, you do have to kind of realise that the Black series makes them more money, they sell more units, and the margin on them, whatever it is, more. But saying that, there is a big community of people that like the vintage collection, and we do hope that they take it more seriously in the future. What I can say, and some of it was pipelined, and Patrick also mentioned it about the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi. I've been saying this for a little while now. You know, we're going to get a lot of stuff for the Return of the Jedi next year. It's going to be an awesome year. Plus, we're going to get some new figures from other media and things like that. We've got lots to look forward to. We just got to keep showing our passion in the groups, on Instagram, on social media. Never shut up about the line and always talk about it online. And they can't ignore us. And hopefully they'll give us more. So that's all we can do, unfortunately, and also keep buying the stuff that you like that they put out. So there you go then, guys. That's it for this week's episode. Once again, I do apologise for the lack of a video for last week. This has been episode 139. If you want a question answered in episode 140, leave it in the comment section below and hopefully be featured next week. Thank you all for watching. Drop a like down below if you've enjoyed the video, and also thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you all for watching, and we shall see you on the next one.